Stolen memories that keep popping up, an endless cycle that we can never seem to forget. Sounds a lot like the internet plus mass surveillance right now. Welcome back to WizardPhD. I'm Professor Lynette, and today we are revisiting a theory I have about the Calamity in Wizards Unite. As always with my theory videos, theories are just ideas, so it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just going on a short little journey together down a train of thought. You can check out my last theory video either at the card up here or in the description down below, where I was exploring where the foundable memories come from in the Calamity, and there were some range of ideas from the Daily Prophet, having a collective secret pensive, to even the internet, which I know everyone in the comments telling me that Muggle technology doesn't work with magic. I understand that. I also read the books with J.K. Rowling's thoughts and everything, but surely since the 90s, the wizarding world has changed. I don't know. We're going to explore that today. So I was having a very lazy Sunday and catching up on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. And the last episode, which is also a link in the description, was with Edward Snowden. And this interview caught my attention and sent me back to a rabbit hole of thoughts that I previously had about Wizards Unite. Just very quick background context. So Edward Snowden is an American whistleblower who disclosed information in 2013 that revealed global surveillance programs run by the National Security Agency using telephone and internet records. And this disclosure sparked lots of ethical discussions about national security and individual privacy in this digital age. I'll get into what they discussed in the interview in a moment, but the very brief quote that I'll share with you now is that Edward Snowden is talking to Trevor about his last year working directly with tools of mass surveillance and asking a question to society, basically. How do you want to live? We are today being used against the future. We're being used against our children. Everything we do now lasts forever, not because we want to remember it, but because we're no longer allowed to forget. Okay, so the Calamity in Wizards Unite is a commentary on mass surveillance. Done, video over. Just kidding, just kidding. This is the theory that I've had on the back burner for a while now because I didn't know exactly how to frame it, and I didn't know how much research I wanted to do into making the argument for this is a commentary on mass surveillance, because I'm not sure. Going off of that, before I get started, so this theory is actually from an analytical perspective. In other words, I'm looking at the storyline from the viewpoint that people who create things often have messages in the things that they create, whether it's intentional or not. So if you are ready to go down a weird analytical / possibly wrong and off base entertainment rabbit hole, let's go. How does the Calamity connect to mass surveillance? From the last video, we know from Constance that the Calamity steals memories and also can manifest things from the past. This idea of stealing memories or taking personal information from people without their permission sounds a lot like what Trevor Noah and Edward Snowden were talking about in their interview. In the interview, Edward Snowden was actually referencing Trevor Noah's memoir, Born a Crime, which is one of my favorite memoirs of all time. I highly recommend this book if you have not already read it. So in the interview, Snowden is talking about the moment when Trevor buys a camera, and this is one thing of many that Trevor buys from the revenue that is generated from his side hustle. So I'll just get into a very short excerpt. So Trevor writes, "I'll never forget that camera. It was a digital camera. We bought it from him. I took it and turned it on. It was full of pictures of a nice white family on vacation, and I felt like shit. The other things we bought had never mattered to me. Nikes, electric toothbrushes, electric razors, who cares? Yeah, some guy might get fired because of the pallet of cornflakes that went missing from the supermarket, but that's degrees removed. You don't think about it. But this camera had a face. I went through those pictures knowing how much my family pictures meant to me, and I thought, I haven't stolen a camera. I've stolen someone's memories. I've stolen part of someone's life." So that excerpt refers to what Snowden goes on to say is during his time with the NSA, he was working with tools of mass surveillance on a very, very, very large scale, and realizing this is not right. This is not okay. Connecting back to the Calamity, Constance asks us in this dialogue, can you imagine having your personal memories stolen and manipulated like that? It's all rather awful. So we're dealing with things in terms of consent, permission, privacy, and the like when we're talking about mass surveillance. Building on the idea that everything now seems to last forever, whether we want it to or not, really challenges us to question the way that we conceptualize memory from both individual and collective standpoints. In the movie Coco, for example, memory acts as a form of existence. As long as a person is remembered by a living person, they exist in memory. And as soon as that memory is forgotten, they cease to exist and disappear. But if we are not allowed to forget people or specific interactions, then what does that mean for us? What does that mean for what exists and what is? How might that shape the ways that we interact with each other? And are we already seeing repercussions of that right now? Why am I talking about Edward Snowden and the NSA and Trevor Noah and memories and all of that? Okay, so my sub-theory is that the Ministry is watching us. We already know in the history of the wizarding world that there are parallels between Muggle histories and wizarding histories. And sometimes they diverge, sometimes they intertwine. For example, we can see a parallel possibly in the Crimes of Grindelwald, the Rise of Grindelwald, how that might correspond with the historical times in the Muggle world with the rise of Hitler and the beginning of World War II. I'm saying this, I'm pointing this out because we can see from different ministers of magic that there are different political ideological shifts, and sometimes that corresponds with what's happening in the Muggle world, and it's not far-fetched to try to make a connection between historical times across the Muggle world and the wizarding world. We also know some things about the Ministry of Magic and its role in the wizarding world. Taking from an excerpt in Short Stories from Hogwarts, we have this from J.K. Rowling. Generally speaking, and despite many a moan and grumble, their community is behind them in a way that is rarely seen in the Muggle world. This is perhaps due to a feeling on the part of wizards that unless they are seen to manage themselves competently, the Muggles might try to interfere. All right, so the Ministry of Magic has some sort of power and authority bestowed by the people of the wizarding world, and of course, that power and authority can lead to dangerous situations. Is it possible that the modern wizarding world is under mass surveillance by the Ministry of Magic? I'm asking this because of an exchange we see between Harry and Constance. If the Calamity can read us, it does make sense that we may be able to influence it. Constance replies, "Do you think it is possible that the spell is actually watching us? Observing what we do and how we do it? That would be truly awful, wouldn't it? A spell watching you all day, every day? I don't even want to think about it." Now, what Harry and Constance are talking about could be the foundable spell that Grim is suspected to have set off, launching the Calamity, but there is another possibility that there's more happening behind the scenes that we don't know about. Harry's word choice about being read by the Calamity, or Constance talking about being watched, really aligns with modern digital technologies that we have for mass surveillance, whether it's facial recognition, we're looking at ways to analyze, collect, and store and process big data. We even have machine learning, AI, all sorts of things that can basically study what we do, how we interact with the world, and be able to provide us with very specific information that it thinks that we want to see based on what it learns about the information collected from us. It doesn't have to be a malicious intention, so we have things like targeted marketing that could be more relevant to us as people, seeing things that we would want to see and be likely to interact with. But then there's also an aspect of convenience that makes our lives easier. We don't have to think about it. We have the machines processing and all that, but also that can lead to unintended consequences of what is happening from these technologies. All this talk about cameras and digital spaces and documenting and watching, So part of this theory also goes back to all the teaser trailers that we have seen for this game. The teasers seem to be from the perspective of cameras. So we have shots from a drone, shots from a cell phone, shots from an alleyway camera in that first trailer. Here's where I kind of diverge of different possibilities that could be true. So might it be possible that the Ministry of Magic is using mass surveillance to keep track of what we are all doing, all the witches and wizards in the wizarding world, keeping track of us through some sort of coordination with Muggle technology? Alternatively, is it that the Ministry is actually incompetent and not involved at all, and it's actually Muggle technology, like these cameras and the mass surveillance that's happening in the Muggle world, that is causing an issue for the wizarding world, particularly with the Statute of Secrecy and connected with this Calamity business? This is where the threat to the Statute of Secrecy comes into play. And because of these Muggle technologies, because of mass surveillance in this age, that's what makes it difficult to deal with the wizarding world in secret, because now Muggles can document magical encounters and keep those memories intact for all perpetuity and spread it around in a very short period of time. Now, the Ministry of Magic might not have the same technologies for mass surveillance as in the Muggle world. That's fine. Perhaps instead it plays out as a spell, like the Foundable spell. Perhaps it's something like a secret collective pensive that's just collecting everyone's memories and then that gets unleashed. All I'm saying is that in this current historical moment, mass surveillance is an important cultural discussion to be had about how we exist and how we interact with each other. And surely over the last 3 decades, since the Harry Potter stories, the wizarding world has changed, and possibly mass surveillance might become a problem to consider in the wizarding world. I mean, the Harry Potter series was completely done and published and out before the first iPhone was even released. And yeah, look at how much the world's changed since then. That is my theory. The Calamity is a commentary on mass surveillance. So this might not be a literal theory for how the Calamity actually functions. It could be just something that the game developers created as part of what they create with this game. Some sort of commentary on mass surveillance in our current society. Or it could be actually that the Ministry has been spying on us for years and this is an unintended consequence of what they've been doing without our knowledge and permission and consent. I would love to know what you think about this theory. Is the Ministry suspect? Do you think that there are possible whistleblowers that are working within the Ministry of Magic right now? Is there anything about mass surveillance commentary that is appealing to you as part of this game? Any and all thoughts, please let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, Juan's ready.